The Roush Active Catback that we have here is going to be a very unique system for all interested 2015 and newer standard 3.5 Ecoboost owners who want to have the ability to control the volume of their system on the fly thanks to the included active components. Now, prospective buyers can expect that full 304 grade stainless steel throughout, in addition to all of your wiring and hardware needed for the system to be installed. Now, because there is a bit more involved here, because there's more tech, expect that price point to be a bit higher than your standard Roush system at right around $1,800 or so. So definitely not a cheap system for your truck. However, the install itself is going to be a bit more involved as well, thanks to the included wiring. So figure a strong 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and a few hours to complete from start to finish, as we'll show you later in the video. So it's no secret that the active exhaust stuff really has been all of the rage lately, ever since being introduced on cars like the Mustang, and even Roush incorporating it on their special edition trucks. It gives you the luxury of keeping things quiet in or around the neighborhood, or just cranking up the volume when it comes time to be heard. And that's exactly what I've heard out of the Roush system, and that's really what this thing will be all about. Now, if you guys are familiar with those special edition Roush trucks, or you've seen my review of the Roush F150, then you've seen a slightly different version of their active system, which gives you a few different levels of tuning along with app support. I do want to be very clear here, guys, and say that this is not going to be that system. Now, while they do have similar characteristics, if you will, the system that we have here is simply going to operate off of a two-way switch that will either allow you to open or close the included valve, and that's pretty much it. So basically, loud to quiet with really no in-between. So how does Roush go about achieving this with this system, and what does it mean for you and your volume levels? Well, with the included valve here fully opened up, you're getting that raw Roush tone that a lot of you guys are probably familiar with. So going my wake the neighbor scale, I'm gonna go soft 4 out of 5 here all day long with everything fully uncorked. Now, with this valve fully closed, on the other hand, things do tame down dramatically. In fact, I'm gonna go soft 2 out of 5 here on the wake the neighbor scale with this thing in quiet mode. Inside the truck, the system or the sound pretty much reflects what mode you are in. With the valve fully open, you certainly hear the system a little bit more, but with things closed up, it certainly tones down inside the truck as well. But either way, with the system fully open, I still wouldn't categorize the sound as any drone or anything that might get annoying on you for long trips. But switching gears here, let's get into a little bit more detail about the build and materials. And again, the 2 stars of the kit here will be the signature Roush muffler, this massive thing right here, working with the included valve that we just showed you guys, which, by the way, is mounted actually before the muffler itself. Now, when closed up, that valve will divert everything through the one side of the muffler here, which is going to keep things a bit quiet. Now, once that thing is fully opened, on the other hand, the exhaust is going to travel through the path of least resistance, and basically at that point get noticeably louder, as this thing is going to be more straight through by design. Now, that valve again is controlled fully through the included toggle switch right here that you will mount inside the cab, and that's basically going to allow for easy changes on the fly. Outside of that, guys, it's pretty much trademark Roush through and through. Killer 304 stainless throughout, guys, including the unique combination of 2.5-inch and 3-inch mandrel-bent tubing, all exiting out the twin 4-inch tips here etched with the Roush logo, and that guy will exit behind that passenger side rear tire. Now, aside from that, you're getting all of your clamps, obviously the wiring, valves, and everything needed to complete the installation. Speaking of which, now we want to show you just what's involved for this type of system. Again, it is going to be quite a bit more involved than your traditional catback, but regardless, here's that detailed walkthrough and quick tool breakdown.
Tools used for this install are impact gun or ratchet, a drill and step bit, reciprocating body saw, a center punch, 21mm wrench, interior panel removal tool, plastic interior panel removal tool, wire depinning tool, needle nose pliers, diagonal cutters, 24mm socket, 21mm socket, 15mm socket, 13mm socket, 10mm socket, 8mm socket, 7mm socket, a wire fishing tool, a pry bar, a tape measure, and a dead blow hammer. So the first step of this install is going to be getting your vehicle safely supported either on a lift or jack stands so that you can properly remove the factory exhaust system to make room for your new one. So let's get started. So I'm going to start by separating the muffler section from the resonator and inlet pipe section because we are going to be reusing a part of this inlet pipe for the new system. So I'm going to take some rust penetrant, I'm going to spray this slip joint here before the flex bellow, and I'm going to remove the back of the muffler from the truck. Now I'll take my 15mm socket on an impact gun and I'll loosen up the clamp and slide everything apart. So because this slip joint's a little bit rusty, I'm also going to spray my hangers with some penetrant, and I'm going to give the hanger rod a little tap with a hammer to get the slip joint to slide back, and then I'll separate the muffler and drop it out of the truck. Now that I've got everything moving nicely, I'm going to take a 10mm socket and unbolt the rear hanger in front of the muffler here, and then I'm going to use a pry bar to push the muffler section back out of the rubber hangers and remove it from the truck. I've got the help of a friend in the back, and I'm just going to pull this muffler back out of the hangers and remove it from the truck. So my next step is actually going to be removing the resonator and inlet pipe, as I'm going to have to cut it to size to fit my new muffler assembly. It'll just be easier to do off the car, and it'll also be easier for me to show you. So I'm going to use a little bit of penetrant, loosen up the 2 bolts, and then I'm going to use a 13mm socket to remove the resonator out. So the next step is actually going to be dependent on the wheelbase of your vehicle, and for ours we measured from center cap to get a 145-inch wheelbase, which makes this cut have to be at 14.4 inches from this flange here. So I'll just measure out 14.4 inches, I'll make a mark, and now I can make my cut. So there is a little bit of assembly that is required for this muffler. You have to install the valve and assemble the new Y pipe to the factory resonator. So the first thing I'm going to do is install my supplied gasket and my supplied valve onto the muffler here on the smaller port. I'm going to make sure that my orientation of my valve is up. I'll slide that into place, and I'll use the supplied hardware to tighten it down. Now I'll just take a 13mm socket and tighten up these nuts. Once I have those installed, I can slide my Y pipe into place. I have my clamps pre-installed here so that once I slide it in, I can put my clamps on and snug them down. And now I'm just going to snug the clamps with a 15mm socket. So now I'm ready to install my factory resonator to my new muffler assembly. I'm going to make sure that I put this weep hole down facing the bottom so that any condensation that builds up inside the resonator can drain out. I made a small mark here just so I know how far I have to slide this into place, and I don't want to go past the reduction here in the pipe. So I'll just slide this into my line, and then I can snug up my clamp. So now before I throw this whole thing into the truck, I'm gonna pre-install my provided hanger, and then I'll bolt everything into place once I have the rear hanger for the muffler. This hanger that I left on the truck earlier in the install is no longer going to be needed, as our new muffler assembly does not have the secondary hanger, so I'm going to use my 10mm socket on my impact gun and remove the bolts and pull the hanger off. So now I'm going to throw this muffler assembly up into the truck. I'm just going to install the hanger rods into the rubber hangers on the truck, and then I'll bolt down the flange at the front. So with my muffler supported in the middle there, I'm going to use the factory hardware that I removed earlier, and I'm going to bolt in the provided hanger. Then I'll just take my 10mm socket and tighten it down. Now that I have my muffler assembly in, I can bolt up my 2-bolt flange here at the cat, and then I'll use my 13mm socket to tighten those bolts down. So in preparation for installing our 2 tailpipes off of the muffler, I actually have to loosen up one of the leaf spring shackle bolts here on the passenger side. I'm going to use a 24mm socket and a 21mm wrench. I'm going to loosen up the bolt, but I'm not going to remove it all the way. I'm just going to back the head of the bolt out just far enough that I can slide in a new hanger that's got a slotted bolt hole, and then I'll tighten everything down once I have everything in place. So I have the clamp for this pipe pre-installed on the muffler there, and when I get this slipped into place, I'll just slide the clamp on over the slip joint, and I'll tighten it down when I have everything ready to go. But I'll just slide this hanger rod through my rear hanger here in the back and line up the pipe. So now I can pre-install the provided new hanger that they've given me in the kit, and this is going to slide into place on that bolt that I just loosened up. Once again, I have my clamp pre-installed on my muffler, and I'll just slide the pipe into place and then put my clamp where it needs to go. Once again, I have the clamp pre-installed on the muffler, and once I put the slip joints together, I'll put the clamp in place and tighten it down when I'm ready. So now that I have the tip hanger just snugged into place, I'm just going to snug the bolt a little bit more, and then when I have the vehicle back down and the leaf spring shackle back up in its full resting position, then I will fully tighten it down. At this point, I can start tightening up some of my clamps just enough to hold everything in place while I make the adjustments on the exhaust pipes to get everything fitted and sitting where I want it to, but not too tight that I can't move things around if I need to. I'll use my 15mm socket on an impact gun, and I'll just snug the clamps down. So the kit provides you with a tip spacer that's supposed to slide onto the clamps. And so what I'll do is I'll put the slotted hole into the clamp bolt like that, and then I'll slide the other side of the slotted hole into the other clamp just like that. Now I'll throw these into place, and then I'll install my tips. Now I'm going to take my 15 mil socket and tighten up my clamps once I get them aligned. All right, now that I have my pipes positioned the way I want to, I can take my 15 millimeter socket on my impact gun and go through and start tightening up all my clamps fully so that nothing moves. With the full weight of the vehicle now down on the suspension, I can go back and tighten up the leaf spring shackle bolt with my 24 millimeter socket and 21 millimeter wrench. So we're now on to the wiring portion of this installation, which has us on the inside of the vehicle. What we're going to have to do is remove the shifter and cup holder bezel, as well as the center console here in the front. And what I'm going to use is a little panel tool and a 7 millimeter socket, but I'm going to have to put the vehicle into neutral first so that I can get this bezel out of the way, and then once I have it removed, I can put it back into park and keep moving on. Next, I'm going to use my clip tool to pry up on this upper portion of the dash here, but I don't need to fully remove it. I just need to gain access to the center console part. And that's going to reveal these two 7 millimeter screws that I need to remove. Now I just need to remove this trim bezel here. If I can get it to pop free. Pry up on the edge. There it goes. And then this can just hang down out of the way. Next, I need to remove this vent trim bezel that has the 12 volt and the 110 plug here, and then I'll unplug those and set this aside. Now I can unplug my connectors and set this off to the side. Next, I'm going to use one of my panel tools here to remove the clips that I can see for the front of this little trim panel that's underneath the glove box, and then I will pull the whole panel out from underneath. So next I'm going to take the provided wiring harness. I'm going to find the connector that has the yellow wires coming off of it, and I'm going to have to fish it up through the dash and pull it out through the hole that I just unplugged my 110 and my 12 volt outlets. I have a little claw tool here that'll help me fish this through the dash, but if you don't have one of these, a coat hanger will suffice. So the next thing I need to do for this is de-pin this 12 volt accessory plug, and what I'll need to do is remove this red locking tab and then pull the wire pin out for the back of this purple wire with a blue tracer or green tracer. And I have some de-pinning tools here that I'll use to remove this stuff, but if you don't have the de-pinning tools, then a small paper clip or a small pick will also get the job done. Just want to be very careful when you pry up on these so that you don't break the connector, and just get the red lock tab to release. And then once it's released, you can get it to come out completely. Make sure to set this off somewhere where you're not going to lose it, because you will have to put it back together. With that wire removed, now you can take the yellow wire from the provided harness and insert it into the spot that you just removed the purple wire. And it should look something like that. Now you can take the wire that you previously removed and insert it into the provided connector that they give you in the kit, and make sure that you have the wire going into the position that it is going to engage into the other connector on the other side of this plug. There we go. Now I'm just going to reinstall my red locking tab that I removed earlier. Now I can plug my connectors together and secure the red lock tab here. So we decided that we are going to mount our switch here in the center console next to the shifter. In order to route my wiring harness, I'm actually going to pull this side panel off, run my wires up where they need to go. I might have to pull a few screws or clips to get this out of my way so I can route my harness properly, but once we get that going, it'll just be a matter of drilling a hole and mounting the switch. And then our switch is going to mount right here. So we're going to be mounting our switch for the active exhaust here in the center console on this trim bezel for the shifter and the cup holder. I made a small mark here just in this little area in the back, and I'm going to drill a hole out to 20 millimeters, and that will fit our switch. So I'll make my mark, I'll drill my hole, and then I can mount the switch up. So now I need to make a small clearance notch in the underlayment of the plastic for the trim bezel that I just put my switch into. So I'm going to drill a small hole and then cut my notch with a body saw or a razor blade. When you do this, make sure that there are no wire harnesses or anything electrical behind your drill bit so that you don't puncture anything when you make your hole. So now I've got to get access to my interior fuse panel. I'm going to pull my floor mat out of the way, and then I'm going to pull this kick panel off and get access to my fuses. And there they are. So the next thing I'm going to do is remove my door sill panel, and I'm also going to remove the trim that goes around the fuse panel. This is going to give me access to route my wires to get to the underside of the vehicle to make all my connections for my active exhaust. And since this one panel that I was removing earlier is in my way, I'm just going to unplug my connector and remove it. So now that I've got access to my fuse panel, I'm going to pull out the 5 amp fuse in location 35. I'm going to use my needle nose pliers and very gently pull it out. And then I can take that fuse and insert it into the fuse tap that's in the harness. And then I can reinstall the fuse tap into location 35. So now that I have my connections made at my fuse panel, I have to route my wire harness for my exhaust controller along the body harness here on the sill plate. So I'm going to pull my B-pillar sill plate out, my C-pillar sill plate out, as well as some of the backing in the back of the vehicle, and run my wire harness. Next, I gotta remove my floor jack here from the rear, and then I'm gonna pull this back panel down for the wall. So now that I have all of my trim panels removed, I can start routing my wire harness. I'm just gonna run it along this body harness that runs from the front of the cab all the way to the rear. I'm going to use this body harness to zip tie our new harness to, and then I will mount up my relay, my ground, and pass my controller wire all the way through to the underside of the cab. Okay, so there is a ground wire that I'm going to have to unbolt here in the rear, and I'm actually going to use that ground hole for the mounting of the ground strap for the wire harness for the controller. I'm going to use an 8mm socket to remove the bolt. And then I can install my ground strap right to that. Now once I have that mounted, I can take my controller switch, my controller plug, and pass that through my vent here at the back of the vehicle, and feed that down to the lower side of the cab where I can connect it to the exhaust. I'm also going to have to mount my relay with a zip tie here in the back of the cab, and then I'll cover it with the rear panel cover once I put everything back together. So now that I have the wire fished down between the cab and the bed, I can plug it into my exhaust valve controller and test my system. So I just tested my system to make sure everything works before I put everything back together. So now I'm going to start putting all my trim panels back in, and while I'm doing that, I'm also going to zip tie all my wires into place. So now I'm just going to mount up my relay and zip tie my wires while I put together all my interior trim panels. So there's some factory zip ties here along this channel for the wire harness for the body. I'm just gonna snip these zip ties and add new ones and tie my new harness to my body harness and clean everything up when I put the panels back in. New trail. And that's going to wrap up this review and install of the Roush Active Dual Exhaust System with same side exit, fitting your 15 to 20 F-150. Thanks for watching, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.